Good morning. I'm Sherman Stanford, and this is Making Sense of the Chaos. If we're going to make sense of the chaos, there are some initial premises or principles that we need to bear in mind. First, God created the cosmos for His glory, not for man's. Second, the jewel of creation is mankind. Third, although in no sense the author of evil, God ordained Adam's fall. Fourth, in Adam, the entire creation fell, including all of mankind. Fifth, as a result of the fall, God pronounced a curse of enmity between the seed of the woman, that's Jesus and all those who are in him, who will spend eternity with God, and the seed of the serpent, which is the remainder of humanity, along with Satan and all of his demons. This is known as the great antithesis. Sixth, all subsequent human experience, interaction, social experience, is an outworking of this enmity. Seventh, the unregenerate are without excuse. They know God, but suppress the truth in culpable self-deceit. Although naturalists dispute the validity of this, positing the Christian creator God asserts a first cause that, in contrast with scientific naturalism, perfectly explains the physical cosmos, life, mind, complexity, design, truth, meaning, purpose, infallibility, inerrancy, universals, the uniformity of nature, and on and on. In short, asserting Christian theism is both a sufficient and an efficient explanation for the observable world in which we live, one which avoids contradiction and arbitrariness. Granted, theism, like naturalism, asserts but does not explain the origin of its originator. Theists, believers in God, say that God is eternal and uncreated. Scientific naturalists, for the most part, say that the cosmos is uncreated but stop short of saying it is eternal. Both regress to a stopping point that they contend simply is. God for theists, the cosmos for scientific naturalists. Superficially, these positions appear similar. However, they are quite different philosophically. First, God, defined as supernatural, omnipotent, omniscient, and uncaused or self-existent, is a sufficient explanation for the cause of the cosmos. He possesses sufficient power and intelligence to account for the world outside of himself. As the final reference point of predication, because of his supernatural attributes listed above, he is also a sufficient explanation for the necessary predicates for human knowledge. While positing his existence does not erase mystery from the world, it satisfactorily explains the world without arbitrariness and contradiction. On the other hand, however, logically, in grappling with the question of the cause of the cosmos, scientific naturalism must do one of five things to explain its existence. They got a lot of problems. First, it must deny cause in explaining the existence of an effect. Now remember, the first principle of science is cause and effect. That is, for every effect, that there is a cause of greater magnitude than the effect. The cosmos is an effect in the sense of my origin. I am an effect. Something caused me. I didn't cause myself. Now, that's one of the options. They're going to have to deny cause in explaining the effect, that is, the cosmos. Second, the second choice that they have is to implicitly resort to an infinite series of causes and effects. Third, the third choice they have is they can claim that it caused itself by chance. Fourth, they can throw in the towel, conceding the necessity of an uncaused cause. God. Or fifth, admit that scientific naturalism has no clue. Let's go over these one at a time. To deny cause and effect, or to selectively and arbitrarily both claim and deny it, is to repudiate the basis for science itself, since trust in cause and effect is science's foundational philosophical principle. Denying a cause greater than the cosmos to explain its origin is a metaphysical contradiction of mammoth proportions. This strategy can be followed for a limited time, but because of the necessity for epistemological consistency, the necessity to be philosophically and logically consistent in our knowledge claims, over time the strategy unravels. It's the same problem that you had when you had the little 4-year-old child who kept asking you why. If your answers to why ended up contradicting themselves or were simply arbitrary, it wasn't long before you felt something exposed. Well, the same thing is true in a general sense regarding all of humanity. We want to know why, and so we keep asking why. Even though we often would prefer not to ask why, there's something in us, I guess what it is, that keeps niggling at us, wanting answers to the mysteries that surround us. And those answers cannot be contradictory or arbitrary and satisfy us. They cannot. It's how we're made. Now you may ask yourself, why are we made that way? And why, if I say the ultimate paradigm that each side has is the first principles, and I say it's either God or it's man, why am I saying, well, yes, but it's the law of contradiction and arbitrariness? Well, you see, those are aspects of God's character. God does not lie, nor is he arbitrary. He has a reason for everything he does, and he has a good reason for it. That's why there's no arbitrariness in him. Now, there's mystery. We don't know all of his reasons. He tells us some of his reasons. He does not tell us all of his reasons. And when he doesn't tell us, we can speculate, but we do not know. Now, because he's a God of non-contradiction, he does not lie or contradict himself. And of course, if he contradicted himself, it would be tantamount to lying. And he places in us, because we're made in his image, the necessity for that same sort of consistency in our viewing things, or we remain unsatisfied. Even if we deny him and hate him, we still need the law of non-contradiction, and we need to avoid arbitrariness to satisfy our intellectual curiosity about the world around us. We are made in his image. Currently, thoughtful scientific naturalists aware of philosophical problems are grappling with their growing awareness of their philosophy's threadbare epistemological garb. Second, if they choose their second choice, resorting to an infinity of causes and effects, it answers nothing, even if we assume eternality for the cosmos, which of course is impossible because of the second law of thermodynamics, and the fact that energy continues to exist in usable form. The Earth, the cosmos cannot be infinite, because if it had existed eternally, all usable energy would have been used up. That's simple logic. But even if you assume that, it merely pushes the problem out of view. But it's intellectually frustrating and unsatisfying. Once again, keep in mind the little 4-year-old child asking why. He didn't die. He grew up and he became us. And we want to know why. And we're not satisfied with answers that fail to avoid contradiction or arbitrariness. And that's why just pushing it back satisfies us for just a little while, but ultimately, no. Okay, his third choice. He can claim the cosmos created itself by chance, but to do so is to repudiate reason and philosophy. Chance, being nothing but non-purposive randomness, and not a thing, not an agent, can cause nothing. it can be an explanation in the sense of our saying, well, listen, it just seemed to be random. I have no idea what caused it. But it doesn't explain anything. It just pushes the explanation a little bit further out of sight. And, once again, ultimately, that's not satisfying. It doesn't work. Furthermore, to assert that the cosmos can cause itself denies that the cause must be greater than the effect, and it requires the assumption of immaterial qualities in a strictly material universe. Okay, what does that mean? Well, did you ever find a rock that could reason? No. We know that logic exists because we reason logically. Where do we find logic in the world? Do we go and dig a deep hole and there it is? Yo, logic, I found it. Do we climb a high mountain and there on the top, there's logic? I don't think so. I don't think you find it anywhere in the material world. I think you find it in the minds of men, human beings. And the reason it's in the minds of human beings is because they're made in the image of God, who is the source of all reason. It is not in the material world and cannot be explained on strictly material assumptions. So they have a material world with immaterial things in it. They accept the immaterial things. They don't want to answer the question of how those things happen to be in a material world. But we're not going to be good with that. We're going to keep asking them, all right, explain. I can explain it because I have an immaterial God who is the source of all of those immaterial attributes. Next, by the way, if they assert the Big Bang, which is the current model that they use as the cause of the cosmos, essentially what they're saying is that the cosmos began itself. Well, think about it. When you say that the cosmos came into existence by a Big Bang, does that tell you anything at all about how order occurs, how logic occurs, how meaning occurs? It doesn't tell you any of those things. It doesn't answer any of those questions. It's a mechanism. So it's a mechanistic explanation for what they see. But it does not account for all of the things that you can't see, but you know exist. You can't see justice. You can't see love. You can't see logic. You can't see purpose. You can't see meaning. But you know that to live in this world and to know anything, all of those things have to be presupposed. How do you presuppose those things arising out of a huge explosion? It's nonsense. Now, of course, they can openly confess ignorance. That's a possibility. Say, well, just don't know. We can't go there. But you see, if they do that, there are two problems. First of all, it violates their own pride. And they got a lot of pride. Look, you aren't going to find anybody with the letters PhD after his name who does not have a lot of pride. It's not possible. Okay, there's a reason he got the PhD. It's not just because he wanted to know a lot of stuff, because he was perfectly free to read ad nauseum from whatever book he chose to, or books he chose to, or ask whatever questions, or view whatever podcast and learn whatever he wanted. But no, he wanted to have the PhD after his name, so he entered a course of study under certified teachers who could give him the PhD after his name. So don't buy this garbage that, they're just seekers after truth. No. Remember Romans 3:10, there's none good, no, not one. There's none who seeks after the truth. None. They're not seeking after the truth. They're seeking other things, but they're not seeking the truth. They may be seeking the truth about some aspect of the cosmos, but they're not seeking the truth. That's never what they're really seeking. Well, it looks like that. Well, who are you going to believe? God or your lying eyes? It's up to you. No matter how unpleasant it may be, were the scientific naturalist philosophically honest, he would be left with only the option of accepting a creator to whom he owes everything. Continuing to deny God merely underlines the inadequacy of his metaphysics, together with his disingenuous self-deception and rebellion. Additionally, besides being an affront to the scientific naturalist's pride, admitting he cannot know the origin of the cosmos, while both denying a creator and the eternality of the cosmos, is to tacitly smuggle in chance as cause. Scientific naturalism is thus not a sufficient explanation for the cause of the cosmos. It fails to explain the origin of the physical universe, cosmology. It offers no cogent explanation for life, ontology, or mind, or any of the necessary predicates for human knowledge, epistemology, mentioned above. To explore in the arena of human knowledge without accounting for the necessary predicates for that knowledge is pure arbitrariness. Ergo, scientific naturalism is a lever with no fulcrum. Logically, it can move nothing. Philosophically, it cannot even consistently account for itself. Christians face the issue squarely and answer, God, as creator, accounts for the existence of the physical universe. God, as a source of life, created life from nothing and thus, therefore, accounts for our ontology. And God, as absolute truth and purposeful intelligence, accounts for the necessary predicates for human knowledge. We think and know truly only as we think God's thoughts after him. As creator, God is both the lever and the fulcrum of all reality. As Paul said in Acts 17:28, in him we live and move and have our being. The concept of an eternal creator God can not only not be demonstrated as false, it can be demonstrated as the only rational explanation for the orderly cosmos within which we live, and thus must necessarily be true. All you have to do is look at your hand to know that God exists. Look in the mirror to know that God exists. Think a thought. Feel outraged and indignant at an injustice. None of those things are possible. Okay. Think a cogent thought. Have meaning in your life. Have a purpose for anything that you do. All of those things point inescapably to God as your creator and as the creator of all things, and as the one who has the authority to tell you what to do with all of your life, including your sexual life, which particularly offends us. Like the wind, God cannot be seen, but also like the wind, his effects are seen. Since he is the only rational explanation for his effects, it is culpable irrationality to deny his existence any more than denying the wind's existence while admitting its effects. Naturalists make feeble efforts at explaining the existence of the cosmos, which utterly fail as explanations. Nevertheless, they try to hide the truth that chance is the fundament of their cosmology, their ontology, and their epistemology. Standing firmly on this quicksand, they proceed to erect a magnificent superstructure that has but a hollow echo and a glancing reflection of plausibility. It is nothing more than a house of cards awaiting the winds of truth for its inevitable fall. Christians, in contrast, offer a creator God whose existence sufficiently explains the origin of the cosmos, of life in its myriad forms, and of the necessary preconditions for human knowledge. Mystery is invoked in response to demands for explanation of how the creator God came to be. Chance is altogether excluded. The idea of a self-existent Creator God is anathema for the God denier who knows the truth but suppresses it in unrighteousness. But it fully explains the world in which we live. In contrast, the idea of a self-existent cosmos is arbitrary and contradictory nonsense, which has no explanatory value. If its presuppositions are consistently applied, it denies all intelligibility. Yet God deniers persist in clinging to it in unrighteousness rather than bending the knee to their Creator. Well, now we'll finally get to the seed of the woman. Let's talk about the Christian worldview. Now, obviously, I have to be general and superficial here because there are a lot of different specific ideas within Christianity that differ. The ultimate undergirding principle of the Christian worldview is that God, as creator of all that exists, is eternally present. He has no beginning, and he will have no end. That's the first thing that you have to understand. This is known as the aseity of God. His self-existence. He has no creator. He's complete in himself. As uncreated being, he created all that exists outside of himself and contains and communicates all truth, meaning, and purpose existing within his creation. Likewise, every necessary predicate of human knowledge is found in him because he is the final reference point of predication for all that is. Right? Simply put, for the theist, God is at the center of his paradigm, of his worldview. Everything that he sees, if he's a consistent theist, has to be seen through the spectacles of God. Okay, we see God first, and then we see everything through him. And we see and think truly as we see and think his thoughts after him. Okay. Second, he created for his pleasure and for his glory. As the crowning piece of his creation, the fullest expression of his glory in creation, he made man, Adam. Philosophically and logically, God is the only plausible explanation for the cosmos, including humanity, in all its astonishing complexity and order. And now we're going to get to something a little more detailed and specific, and for some people, a little more controversial. We're going to talk about the Trinity. Now, the Trinity, of course, is a mystery. It's a mystery for everybody. And for some people, they claim it's not only a mystery, it's a contradiction. We'll discuss that. The Christian God, the God of the Bible, presents himself as three distinct persons, yet one God. Now, for unbelievers, this is invariably a point of contention, to say the least. They believe the concept of the Trinity either involves contradiction, as I said, or else that it is meaningless nonsense. First, let us examine whether the claim of God's triunity violates the Aristotelian law of non-contradiction. That law says that a thing cannot be so and not so in the same sense and at the same time. Now, we've talked about that before, but you need to bear that in mind. And since most people are not used to thinking along these lines, we're going to have to repeat some things over and over to get used to handling these concepts. Because these are important if you want to understand what's going on in the world. Now, if you don't want to, well, that's fine too, but in that case, you're really in the wrong place. A careful reading of the Bible reveals that at no time is God referred to as one and not one at the same time and in the same sense. Nor is he referred to as three and not three at the same time and in the same sense. Nor is he referred to as one and three at the same time and in the same sense. The doctrine of the Trinity, therefore, is not contradictory. Did you get that? You can go over that if you'd like. But it's very important to understand there's no contradiction in the doctrine of the Trinity. God is never referred to as one and not one at the same time and in the same sense, and therefore, there's no contradiction. Now, God is, what we do believe is that God is one in the sense of perfect agreement and essence of being. All the attributes of divinity are shared by all three persons of the Godhead, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And yet, in the sense of function and personality, he is three. This is a profound mystery which was only hinted at in the Old Testament. The Trinity is much more clearly revealed in the New Testament. However, although it is revealed, it is not explained. Logically, finiteness, finitude, ultimately cannot contain and therefore can neither fully explain nor fully understand infinity. Created beings, because they are finite, have no sufficient frame of reference by which to fully grasp the infinite. We talked about that a little bit earlier. Try to imagine something that never ends. Okay? And try not to imagine, well, what about after that? There is no after that. Try to imagine something that never began. And then try not to think about, well, what about before that? There is no before that. See, for us, everything has a before that and an after that. For God, there is no before that and after that. Now, we can understand the words, but for us to truly understand the concept is very difficult because reflexively, we just assume always that there's a before and an after. And so we want to subconsciously put God in a box where there's a before and an after and not keep him as open-ended as he is. The closest we come to grasping the infinite is in understanding that the difference between the finite and the infinite is not a difference of magnitude. It's not just that God is bigger than we can imagine. It's a difference of category. He's neither bigger than we can imagine nor smaller than we can imagine. He has no measurableness to him. You can't measure him because he's beyond measurement. He's not beyond measurement because he's too big or he's too small. When you think in terms of space, when you think in terms of measurement, you're thinking in terms of space. Well, he's not limited by space. Not because he's bigger than space, but space has nothing to do with him. It's a whole different category. I mean, my mind starts going, just trying to think about that. but we need to understand that when we're talking about God and his infinity, we're talking about a category that goes beyond any human frame of reference. Easy to say, very difficult to understand. Finitude is measured in time and space. Infinitude is timeless and dimensionless. Oh my goodness. Very easy to say, very hard to understand. Thus it is impervious to measurement in any manner known to finite man. The second criticism non-believers level against the concept of the Trinity is that it is meaningless nonsense. While it is admittedly difficult to understand how God can be one in one sense and three in another sense, the difficulty in understanding it does not make the concept meaningless nonsense. In other contexts, men demonstrate little difficulty in understanding the proposition that a thing can have multiple senses in which to be understood. A man may be in one sense a husband, in another sense a father, in another a worker, in another a boss, all without contradicting one another. Admittedly, there is no question that the concept of God's triunity transcends all frames of human finite reference. All comparisons or examples we draw to assist in understanding it ultimately break down. This is an issue, however, of its mystery, not of contradiction or meaninglessness. Simply because we cannot understand something doesn't mean it has no meaning. It means we don't understand it. And for us to act as if I can't believe anything I don't understand, or if I don't understand it, it must be meaningless, is presumption and pride at a level that's just beyond all description. But then if our frame of reference is limited to the physical cosmos, it is stipulated that all questions regarding both the existence and attributes of God go beyond our capacity to comprehensively understand, since they eclipse our frame of reference, the physical cosmos, and our finite physical selves. Orthodox Christianity teaches that the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit are three distinct persons, each one fully God, yet there is but one God, not three. Now, I could go into a great many other proofs, but that'll take a lot of time. That's not part of what we're trying to do here. I'm trying to give you an overview, basically, of what Christianity is, not go into detail. If anyone has any questions, please send them to us. We'll be glad to answer them. And we thank you very much. We'll see you tomorrow at the same time. Have a good day.